Good day, everyone. I am Mr. Ferran, a research and mathematics faculty at De La Salle Santiago Zubel School, Philippines. My research topic is entitled Google Forms-Based Lesson Playlist, examining students' attitude towards its use and its effect on academic performance. So this paper was presented in the International Conference last January 2021. According to UNESCO, 87% of the world's student population is affected by school closure due to COVID-19. And if no solutions to mitigate this closure, the achievement gap and dropout rates will likely widen. To grapple with these challenges, the educational and government leaders worldwide offer an academic response to guarantee the continuity of teaching and learning activity. In the Philippines, the Department of Education introduced the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan that offers flexible learning delivery modalities for Filipino students' distance learning. The BELCP includes television-based instruction, radio-based instruction, self-learning modules, and online distance learning. Among these modalities, the participants of my study adopted the home-based online distance learning, a virtual learning space composed of an instructor, students, learning materials, and tools to support self-paced learning at the comfort of their homes. The abrupt transition to online distance learning opens an opportunity for technology-assisted education with the aid of digital learning technology. However, DLT adoption and utilization can expect barriers in the educational context, especially in the Philippines, where internet access is low. So these barriers are categorized as personal, professional, institutional, and contextual. Most of these were obtained from the perceptions of the higher education faculty and only few from students, especially students in secondary level. Thus, the participants of my study were secondary students. So to have a successful implementation of home-based online distance learning, we must first resolve the barriers that connect the teachers and students in an online distance learning environment. According to Almaia and colleagues 2019, students' acceptance of using digital learning technology is essential to guarantee online education success. So this success can be determined through the following: by understanding how students perceive e-learning tools features, by creating a mechanism based on the factors that influence students' belief in e-learning, and by understanding the students' attitude towards using digital learning technology. Hence, I propose this research framework following the sequential exploratory mixed methods design. For the qualitative phase, I will answer the question, what are the design factors of an e-learning tool that affect students' attitude towards its use? Then, the teacher will design an e-learning tool based on the design factors that affect students' attitudes towards its use. The qualitative phase of my study will answer the next three questions. How do students view the teacher-designed e-learning tool in terms of the design factors? How do the design factors affect students' attitudes towards using the teacher-designed e-learning tool? And do the students' attitude towards using the teacher-designed e-learning tool mediate the design factors' effect on students' academic performance? So, this is the methodology of my study, divided into four stages: the qualitative approach, the development of the playlists, its administration, and the quantitative approach. For the qualitative approach, focus group discussion was conducted with 14 select grade 12 STEM students. The collected data were analyzed using thematic analysis approach. The themes were compared against the constructs of the technology acceptance model of Fatima 2015. Then, in the development stage, 9 Google Forms-based lesson playlists were created based on the design factors that affect students' attitude towards its use. Then, 9 Google Forms-based lesson playlists were utilized by grade 12 STEM students asynchronously for the entire term 1, which is 9 weeks, of Research 2 class in a home-based online distance learning. There were 1 to 2 days of synchronous meetings every week to discuss the analytics provided by the lesson playlist. Improvements on the Google Forms-based lesson playlists were made based on the comments of the students and observations of the teacher. And for the quantitative approach, administration of the survey questionnaire adapted from Fatima et al. 2015 to 100 grade 12 STEM students was conducted. Then, the academic performance was measured using the total scores obtained in the assessments provided by the playlists. Data analysis was performed using partial least square structural equation modeling with the aid of the WARP PLS version 7 software. From the focus group discussion responses, themes were generated using the constructs of the technology acceptance model. Then the generated themes were collectively named as design factors using the description in the study of Sanjani et al. 2017. According to the students, a teacher must consider the system quality, the user perceived ease of use, perceived self-efficacy, and perceived usefulness when designing an e-learning tool for the online distance learning environment. So according to them, for system quality, the e-learning tool should contain quality content, support other e-learning tools, allow the users to freely navigate, not have a lot of unnecessary features, organize the materials for easy access, collate all materials in an accessible location, and it should work and be accessible to different devices. For perceived ease of use, they describe the e-learning tool to be easily managed and controlled. They want it to be easy to use and user-friendly. They suggested that it should require less mental effort to use and not be time-consuming to operate or use. For perceived self-efficacy, they mentioned that it should support in carrying out the task, contain clear instructions and expectations, be flexible for both online and offline learning, provide seamless transfer and saving of files, contain downloadable supplementary materials for offline learning, and for perceived usefulness, the e-learning tool must support learning, provide analytics and immediate feedback for improvement, only contain materials related to the objectives of the lesson, and must contain appropriate number of activities or enough workload. This table shows how the students viewed the playlist in terms of the design factors. The students are satisfied with the quality of the Google Forms-based lesson playlists. The students find it easy to use and user-friendly. They showed confidence in using the playlists to carry out the tasks in a home-based online distance learning. They also believe that using the playlist enhances their job performance, and they showed a high and positive attitude towards the use of the Google Forms-based lesson playlist. I also included here their academic performance measured using the scores obtained from the playlist, which is categorized as advanced. These tables show that the structural model met the requirements for construct, convergent, and discriminant validity. Also, the model fit indices are within the acceptable range. The study found that all the design factors positively influence students' attitude towards using the Google Forms-based lesson playlist. This study showed that the strongest predictor of the attitude towards the use of the playlist is perceived ease of use, which confirms that perceived ease of use can influence users' attitudes towards using an e-learning technology regardless of diverse learning environments, users' demographic profiles, and types of digital learning technology. This study found that perceived self-efficacy was the second influencing factor of students' attitude towards using the Google Forms-based lesson playlist, which suggests that the playlist helped the students to accomplish the tasks despite the DLT adoption barriers such as internet connection, unpredictable power outage, and challenges at home due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This study also confirmed the FGD participants' suggestions that system quality and its usefulness positively affect the students' attitude in using an e-learning tool. Now for the last research question of the study, this study found that the students' attitude towards using the playlist does not significantly affect their academic performance. Similarly, the effects of the design factors are not mediated by the attitude to the academic performance. So examining the literature, the Google Forms-based lesson playlist utilization in online distance learning effectively addresses the digital technology adoption barriers by ensuring that the student's performance will not be affected by these barriers once they arise. This result is accurate since the e-learning tool was designed based on the design factors that ensure successful utilization of the e-learning tool despite its expected barriers in an online distance learning environment. Similarly, the Google Forms-based lesson playlist contains supplementary materials that can be downloaded and accessed offline and can be used by the students as guide in learning the lesson by not heavily relying on the lesson playlist itself. Therefore, this study proved that using the teacher-designed Google Forms-based lesson playlist was effective and successful, despite the possible challenges and barriers in a home-based online distance learning environment. So in conclusion, the study showed that system quality, perceived ease of use, perceived self-efficacy, and perceived usefulness were the design factors of digital learning technology appropriate for home-based online distance learning. All design factors influence the student's attitude towards using the Google Forms-based lesson playlist positively. However, the positive attitude towards the use of the Google Forms-based lesson playlist did not negate the effects of the design factors on students' academic performance. Perceived ease of use is the strongest predictor of the student's attitude towards the use of the playlist, followed by the perceived self-efficacy. This study proved that using the teacher-designed Google Forms-based lesson playlist was effective and successful despite the possible challenges and barriers in a home-based online distance learning environment. So for the recommendations of the study, to educators, school administrators, and policymakers, the identified design factors may serve as a reference in designing instructional materials and e-learning tools, especially when utilized in an online distance learning environment. For future researchers, this study recommends implementing the use of the Google Forms-based lesson playlist to examine the applicability of the developed e-learning tool to different students' learning platforms and learning delivery modality. So here are my references for my study, and I would like to acknowledge the following: my mentors, Dr. Socorro Aguja and Dr. Maricar Espudente, and Ms. Janet Torato of De La Salle Santiago Zobel for inviting me to be part of the Star One program. And before I end my presentation, allow me to share my teaching philosophy. I do not see my classroom as a class of 30 students, but as a class of 30 innovative minds, and connecting them to information through technological platforms. Their innovativeness becomes a service to their community. Thus, even as early as a student, they can be depended on. Thank you for listening.